Hello guys, Charles here and welcome back to my channel. So I just want to quickly share with you, or maybe remind some of you, of how to go about choosing the exact right voicings for a standard or for any song for that matter. The problem we've got on the guitar is that we're relatively limited to kind of 4-note chords, 5-note chords, sometimes 6-note chords, but we're nowhere near as flexible harmonically as a pianist is. A pianist and other instruments can really cover their ground and make sure they've got all the right colours in there. We've got to be quite a bit more selective on the guitar to make sure we're really nailing the changes. Now, when you take a look at the real book or most charts, you'll find that they're kind of a simplified version of the harmony. And if you go to a literal transcription of what was played maybe by a pianist or by a guitarist, there was probably a bit more colour going on in that chord than is implied by what's written in the real book. And so I want to share with you a really good example of this in the real book, which is the tune Footprints, of how to make sure you're really getting the exact sound that you heard on the record, or the close approximation of it as is available to us as guitarists. So if we take the Footprints turnaround, what you'll find in the book, so we've got an F sharp minor 7 flat 5, followed by an F7 sharp 11, followed by an E7 flat 5 sharp 9, which is a good example of a chord which just isn't very friendly on the guitar, but we could play it like this. And then A7 flat 5 sharp 9, which really hard to find a third here, so we could do it this way. Those chords sound nice and they'll certainly work. A bit tricky and impractical, some of those voicings, but fine. So to distill them down and make them easier to play, we kind of want to use fewer notes basically. There's, if I try and play that A flat 7 flat 5 sharp 9, I have to use all fingers, and I'm covering 5 strings there. So the solution is to simply strip these chords down, but use the melody as the important guide tone. Now, you can't always rely on this, but the melody is basically the composer telling you this was the tonality I was hearing that chord coming from. As you know, some chords can be interpreted as coming from different scales. You can find that chord in the harmonic minor, the melodic minor, or in the major scale, among others. So really looking at the melody helps us to think about what the important chords are, and they generally end up being more practical. So for example, F sharp minor 7 flat 5 is great, but the melody note here is actually B, which gives me that sound. Or if I had a bassist playing the F sharp, I could play a C instead. Now already that chord's got so much more colour than just that. Different ways I can go about doing that. Again, I wouldn't want to be playing my F sharp with my thumb here on my B string, but just for demonstration purposes. Next, we've got F7 sharp 11, and again, the melody notes here are B, D, and G, which is actually G major triad. So we could play G over F, or G7 in its third inversion. However, I like the dominant sound in this one, so I'm going to go. I just think that's got a little bit more to it than the 13 does the D. Or we can maybe go for both. Next, E7 flat 5 sharp 9. So again, that's kind of the obvious voicing here. But because I've just used this shape here, that sounds great to me. Just taking that same shape and moving it down, I still need to keep the B flat on the top for the melody. So that's giving me actually an E9 flat 5. Natural 9. Now if you wanted to have the sharp 9, it's just there, available to you. But you've got all 3 9s available to you on that string. So experiment with them. Until you find the one that you like. I personally like the natural 9. But you may prefer the sharp 9 as it says in the book, and that's fine. Next is A7 flat 5 sharp 9. Now for flat 5 chords, we can treat these as tritone substitutions. So I need, according to the melody, I need a G and a C in this chord. And I can get that just by playing, rather than thinking of A flat 7, thinking of D7, I can have D, which is the flat 5 of A flat, C, which is the third of A flat, but it's a melody note more importantly, F, which is the sharp 9 of a D7 flat 5 sharp 9, and a G, because it's a melody note. So this whole sequence has become and then finally, just because I like the sound of it, I'm hearing an E flat on that final chord. Now, it's supposed to have a flattened fifth relative to the A flat, which should be D, as we've already done. But I think I prefer that sound there, which is this. So to sum all of that up, the point here is don't be too religious about the exact chord changes written in the book. The 2 skills you need to develop are, 1, interpreting the melody as part of the harmony. Now it's not always a different note, but this is a good example of where the melody isn't always considered in the changes. And the second thing is, have an opinion. Decide. I prefer the natural 9 because I genuinely prefer that. I think that sounds better rather than. Now that's great. That's really good, and it sounds fantastic. It's a lovely sound, but it just isn't as practical. It doesn't fall under the fingers as well because I've got to play this voicing. So there's compromises have got to be made on the guitar. I think that does the job just as nicely to my ear. Same with this final chord. Technically, we could be playing, but I prefer. So I'm just having an opinion on it, rather than just doing exactly what the book says. And this is a really important skill to develop, and it's one I'm still developing. I certainly don't expect you to agree with my choices of voicings on this particular progression. It was simply an example of how I go about thinking about this stuff. So I hope you found that one useful. If you did, please do give this video a like, subscribe, dim that notification bell, and share with any of your friends who you think might find this helpful for their voicings. And as always, I hope you're all doing very well, getting plenty of practice in, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.
Roll up, let me embed a story you'll never forget. A drip, drip, but drowning in debt now. You can't buy your way out, and I heard you find it difficult to cope. Well, here by this bottle full of hope.